Okay, so let's transition to some how-to. Stephanie, in your experience, what are some techniques that help communicators to communicate more concisely?
Well, I love that you are emphasizing the preparation ahead of time because it does take time. In fact, that Mark Twain quote I actually have written here. I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one. It is this idea of thinking very clearly about what I want to convey to the audience that's sitting in that room. Why do they care? Why does it matter to them? So it's, as David said, less focus on myself, more focus on what I'm trying to convey. There's this art of thinking about, certainly what we take people through in PowerSpeaking is think through your content. And then if you could boil that down into the essence of what you want people to walk away with. So to your point, Carrie, at the beginning, we are so inundated with so much information, we can only hold on to so much. So one of the great disciplines is get your content out there and then take a step back and see if you can't boil that down into like a main message, a core message that says in 7 words, here's what I want you to walk away with and remember, if you remember nothing else. So that for me has been a primary way of helping people get to the essence and the core of what they want to say and then build out from there. So that's one.
So beginning with the end in mind.
Beginning with the end in mind. And again, our discipline is think about audience, what you want them to walk away with, and what's that message you want them to hold on to. And that message many times drives right to that action step. And if you get those, in fact, we ask our groups all the time, if your audience remembers nothing but the core message and the action step, how would you rate that talk on a scale from 1 to 10? I would say most times people will go, it's a 10. So think about all that other noise that happens in that talk. If we could just boil that down, that's going to force conciseness.
Interesting. And you're saying 7 words or less.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So really discipline yourself to keep it that short.
Exactly. I mean, we think about, we use Martin Luther King as an example. In his notorious speech, we have 4 words, I have a dream. And from that simple 4-word statement, we can link that back to all of the elements of that speech. So one good core message can help people remember even more of what you put into that presentation.
Excellent. And Rick Gilbert is adding a number of core messages. If you take a look at those in chat, I am sure all of those will instantly come to mind. Chevy to the levee. Drove my Chevy to the levee. David, what would you add?
I want to build on what Stephanie said about getting the entire thing down to a 7-word core message. But then obviously you're not going to walk into a room, say those 7 words and walk out. And I think what tends to happen then is as we're building out the rest of our presentation or writing the rest of our email, that's when we start to get really wordy. And so using that core message as an anchor, we can say, all right, now what else can I say about this? And this is going to be a little bit counterintuitive, but I say initially, write it all out. What could you say about this? And then you go back and you say, okay, if I say this, will that help the audience, first of all? And secondly, does that tie into the core message? Or is that just really cool additional information that I know that I think is interesting, so I'm just going to add it in there? So it's a bit of a painstaking process to go through and say, literally edit. Like, this point that I was going to make, I probably don't need because I know what my core message is. One of the things that I do for our company is I publish this monthly newsletter. My rule of thumb for that newsletter is 6 sentences for any story, update, news item that we put in there. And so people in the company will send me stuff, and my goal is to boil that down into 6 sentences. And if I start from that place, I can often get it down to less than 6 sentences and still communicate exactly what I wanted to communicate.
Excellent. Excellent. And again, that takes time, but is much more certain to achieve the goal. You know, we're talking first and foremost about the importance of being concise. There's a number of things that naturally go with that. Clarity is an example. And there is the importance of making sure that you use really clear, simple language. And please, please, please avoid corporate speak. That's just going to muddy the message and cause people to tune out, especially if it's, you know, words that are just overused. I saw this hilarious graph, and it showed, you know, words used in a corporate environment versus words that you would say in a pub. Not to say you want to get down to raunchy language at all, but keeping it simple. And they gave this example. Would you ever say "ibida" in a pub? Right. Probably not. Probably not. So spell things out in clear, simple ways. Also, stickiness is important. So conciseness helps people to retain the information, which is the key points you're making in terms of really restricting the word count. The other key is repetition. Another key is using language that evokes emotion. So all those things kind of come together to help ensure that you do what we say, which is to punch through the noise. Okay, so
Carrie,
yeah, please.
I just want to add one thing about what people can do. This is a skill, and I've been working in talent development for 35 years. I have never come up with a skill that you can get better at without practice and feedback. So we highly recommend that if you're doing a presentation or writing an email, share that with somebody, ask for feedback, but be really deliberate about the feedback you're asking for. Ask, can I say this in fewer words? Can I say this with more clarity? It's just not possible to get better at anything without practice and feedback.
Excellent. Excellent. And as we revealed, it's a constant work in progress, even for those of us that are in the business of communication.